All right, everyone, let's get started. This is a formal guild meeting to address the allegations against the Jackal. Everyone please mute unless you're called to speak. The Jackal, you're accused of ninja looting the Thunder Fury binding during last week's raid, violating our loot distribution rules, and lying to officers when confronted. How do you plead?
I didn't ninja it. The Master Looter gave it to me. I don't understand why this is a trial.
Your Honor, we have screenshots showing the Jackal whispered the Master Looter mid-raid asking for priority on the binding. This was not part of our DKP system.
Objection. Whispering for loot isn't against guild rules. The Master Looter made the decision.
Sustained. Prosecutor, do you have evidence the Jackal violated specific guild rules?
Yes, Your Honor. Guild Rule 7.3 states, all legendary drops are distributed via DKP bidding. The Jackal had negative DKP. They should not have been eligible. We have the DKP logs here.
This is insane. It's just a game item. You're acting like I committed murder.
The Jackal. This is your third offense. The court takes repeat violations seriously. Do you have a defense?
My defense is this is ridiculous. You're all taking this way too seriously.
Very well. We'll hear witness testimony. Raiders who were present, please unmute when called.
Welcome back to MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask. I'm Boss Mode, and today we're talking about one of the strangest and most fascinating phenomena in MMO gaming, guild trials. When communities create their own justice systems, hold formal proceedings, and pass judgment on their members. Let's explore when guilds become courtrooms. Before we get into the legendary trials, let's talk about what guild trials are, how they work, and why guilds create these elaborate justice systems in the first place. A guild trial is a formal proceeding where the guild gathers to determine if a member violated rules and what the punishment, if any, should be imposed. Some guilds do this casually. Hey, did you ninja loot? Yeah. Well, you're kicked. But other guilds treat it like an actual legal proceeding with structure, evidence, and formal judgment. The most elaborate guild trials have specific roles. There's a judge, usually the guild leader or a senior officer. There's a prosecutor, often the officer who brought the complaint. Sometimes there's a defender, someone arguing on behalf of the accused. There are witnesses, people who saw what happened, and there's the jury, the guild membership who might get a vote on the verdict. Guilds create these systems for several reasons. First, transparency. If you're going to kick someone, especially a longtime member, the guild wants to see that it was fair. A trial shows the process and evidence. Second, deterrence. Public trials send a message that rule violators have consequences. Third is the community involvement. Letting the guild participate in justice makes them feel invested in the rules. The crimes that go to trial vary by guild. The most common are loot violations, ninja looting, violating DKP systems, taking items that weren't entitled to. Then there's drama creation, starting arguments, harassing other members, and causing guild conflict. There's attendance violation, repeatedly missing raids or bailing mid-content. And then there's the representation violations, embarrassing the guild in public, being toxic in pugs while wearing guild tags. Some guilds have written constitutions, actual documents outlining rules, procedures for trials, and appeal processes. It sounds absurd, but the Serious Rating Guild or EVE Online Corporation, these documents can be dozens of pages long. They're treating their guild like a government. The proceedings can be surprisingly formal. The accused is given notice of the charges, evidence is collected, screenshot, chat logs, witness statements. The trial happens at a scheduled time in Discord or in game. Both sides present their case. The guild discusses or votes. A verdict is rendered. Punishment is imposed or the accused is acquitted. Punishments range from warnings to demotion to temporary suspension or permanent removal. Some guilds have probation, where you're on thin ice. Others have community service, where you have to farm materials or help guildies to make amends. But here's the thing. These trials only have power because everyone agrees to respect them. There's no game mechanic forcing anyone to follow guild justice. It's all social pressure and community agreement. If someone doesn't care about their reputation, they can just leave or ignore the verdict. That's what makes it fascinating. These are entirely player-created legal systems enforced through nothing but social consequences. It's emergent governments in virtual worlds. All right, let's get into some actual guild trials that became legendary. These are proceedings that became server folklore. The legendary Mount Trial, World of Warcraft during Wrath of the Lich King. A top-rating guild called Ascendancy had strict loot rules. Everything was DKP-based, very organized, very fair. They killed a raid boss and a legendary mount dropped, extremely rare, like a 1% drop rate. According to their DKP rules, the player with the highest DKP should get first bid. That player was a mage named Verity, who'd been in the guild for 3 years, had perfect raid attendance, and had saved up DKP especially for a mount like this. The master looter, an officer named Marcus, gave the mount to his girlfriend instead. She was a relatively new member with very low DKP. When questioned, Marcus claimed she'd bid higher in whispers. She backed him up. Verity was furious and demanded a guild trial. The guild leader agreed. They scheduled a formal trial for the following weekend. 50-plus guild members attended via Ventrilla. This was before Discord. They appointed a prosecutor, a defender, called witnesses, the whole thing. The prosecution presented DKP logs showing Verity should have won. They presented chat logs showing no public bidding happened. They had witnesses testify that the amount was awarded before bidding was called. The case was airtight. The defense argued that the master looter had discretion for special circumstances. They claimed Verity was toxic and didn't deserve the mount. They couldn't provide evidence of his toxicity beyond vague accusations. The guild voted 43-7 in favor of Verity. Marcus and his girlfriend were both kicked from the guild. The mount couldn't be traded, so Verity never got it. But the principle mattered. The guild held a trial, found the officers guilty of corruption, and removed them. This trial became famous on the server. Other guilds started citing it as an example of fair loot distribution. Marcus and his girlfriend's names became synonymous with loot corruption. The EVE Online espionage trial. EVE Online takes players' justice to another level because there's actual in-game consequences like asset seizure and territory loss. This trial involved a corporation director accused of being a spy for a rival alliance. The accused, let's call him Victor, had been in the Corps for 8 months. He was a director with access to Corps hangars and intel. The Corps started noticing their operations were getting ambushed. Every time they planned a major fleet movement, enemies were waiting. There were too many coincidences. They launched an internal investigation. Counterintelligence officers started feeding Victor false information through different channels to see which info leaked. Sure enough, the false information Victor had access to showed up on enemy fleet positioning. The court held a trial. It was broadcast on Twitch and had over 1,000 viewers. The prosecution presented their investigation findings, the pattern of leaked intel, the false information test results, communication patterns that suggested Victor was reporting to enemy leadership. Victor denied everything. He claimed the evidence was circumstantial. He argued that the intel could have leaked through other channels. He demanded they prove he was communicating with the enemy. The prosecution then revealed they'd hacked Victor's other account, which is against EULA but proves the point of this case. They found messages where Victor was coordinating with enemy FCs and receiving payment for intel. Victor rage quit the trial, logged off, and biomasked his character, permanently deleted. The corp seized its assets, which were worth billions of ISK. They distributed his wealth to members who'd lost ships in the ambushes he had enabled. This trial became EVE legend. It was documented on EVE forums, Reddit, and gaming news sites. It showed that player-run justice in EVE can be as serious as real-life corporate espionage. This one is the Kangaroo Court. Not all guild trials are fair. This one from Final Fantasy XIV shows how trials can be a theater when the verdict is predetermined. A free company officer, Diana, had made enemies with the guild leader's inner circle. She questioned some leadership decisions, advocated for rule changes, and generally wasn't falling in line. The leadership wanted her gone but needed a reason. They accused her of creating drama and being divisive. They scheduled a trial. Diana prepared a defense, gathered supporters, felt confident she could prove the accusations were baseless. The trial was set up. The judge was the guild leader who wanted her gone. The prosecutor was the guild leader's best friend. The witnesses were all inner circle members who had been told what to say. Diana wasn't allowed a defender. She had to represent herself. Every time Diana tried to present evidence of her contributions, she was cut off. When her supporters tried to speak, they were muted. The trial lasted 15 minutes. The verdict was decided before it started. Guilty, kicked from the FC. Multiple members quit in protest. They called out the trial as a sham on the server's subreddit. The FC's reputation took a hit. But the leadership got what they wanted. Diana was gone. This shows the dark side of guild trials. They can be weapons to remove people you don't like while maintaining a veneer of fairness. It's not justice, it's political theater. The Redemption Trial. This one has a happy ending. In Guild Wars 2, a guild member, Alex, was accused of scamming other guildies. He borrowed gold from several people, claiming he needed it for crafting, then never paid anyone back. Total scammed was about 500 gold from 5 different people. The guild held a trial. The evidence was clear. Screenshots of loan agreements, unfulfilled promises to repay, Alex avoiding people he owed. Alex didn't deny it. He admitted he had taken the gold and spent it on gem store items instead of crafting. But Alex did something unusual. He took full responsibility. He didn't make excuses. He explained he had been going through personal stuff and had made some bad decisions. He offered to pay everyone back in installments, and he apologized sincerely. The guild voted on punishment. They could have kicked him. Instead, they put him on probation. He had to pay back the loans over the next 2 months. He had to publicly apologize. He lost his officer rank but could still be in the guild. Alex followed through. He farmed gold, paid everyone back, was a model guild member during probation. At the end of probation, the guild held another vote and reinstated him fully. He's still in that guild today, years later, and his trial reputation became a positive story about accountability. This shows that guild trials can be restorative justice, not just punishment. When done right, they can rehabilitate rather than just exile. The mass trial. And this one is wild. In a large World of Warcraft guild during Legion, there was widespread suspicion that multiple members were breaking the no carry selling rule. The guild prohibited members from selling carries for personal profit. Instead of holding individual trials, the leadership held one mass trial for 7 accused members at once. It was chaos. 7 defendants, multiple prosecutors, dozens of witnesses. The discourse voice channel was a mess. Evidence was presented against all 7. Screenshots of them advertising carries, testimonies from buyers, chat logs discussing splitting profits. Some of the accused admitted guilt, others denied it. One person claimed they were doing free carries, not paid carries, which was technically within the rules. The trial lasted for over 3 hours. The guild had to vote on each defendant individually. Different verdicts came down. 3 were kicked, 2 were suspended, 2 were acquitted due to the lack of solid evidence. The trial became infamous on the server because it showed the limits of guild justice. 7 cases at once was too many. Evidence got confused. People forgot which defendant they were discussing. It was messy, took forever, and left everyone exhausted. But it worked. The guild sent a message that carry selling wouldn't be tolerated, and they followed through even when it meant kicking multiple members at once. The role play trial. This one's from an RP server in WoW, where the trial itself was an in-character role play. A player was accused of violating server RP rules by griefing RP events. The trial was held in-game in Stormwind's throne room. Characters showed up in formal attire. The entire proceeding was done in RP. The judge was a character who was an actual in-character judge in the realm. Lawyers were characters who RP'd as lawyers. Guards stood at the doors. The evidence was presented in character. On the evening of the 15th of month Redfall, the accused did interrupt Lady Sylvana's wedding ceremony by repeatedly casting spells and refusing to cease when asked. Witnesses testified in RP. The defendant gave an in-character defense. It was absurd and amazing. This was a trial for breaking real community rules, but conducted entirely as a fiction. The verdict came down. Guilty. The punishment was an in-character ban from all major RP events for 3 months. The defendant accepted it. They played out their character being escorted from the throne room by the guards. Then, out of character, they apologized for griefing and promised to respect RP events going forward. This trial showed that even justice systems can be content in MMOs. The trial itself became an RP event that people enjoyed participating in. So why do guilds go through all this effort? Why not just kick people when they cause problems? Let's talk about the psychology and social dynamics behind guild trials. First, it's about legitimacy. If a guild leader can kick anyone arbitrarily, members feel unsafe. They wonder if they're next. A formal justice system with rules and procedures make the guild feel stable. You know what the rules are. You know what happens if you break them. and you know the process is fair. Second, it's about community buy in. When the whole guild participates in a trial as witnesses, jury, observers, they're invested in the outcome. They've been a part of the process. If someone gets kicked, it's not the leadership kicked someone again. It's we decided together this person needed to go. Third, it's about documentation. Trials create records. If someone claims they were kicked unfairly, you can point to the trial transcript. You have evidence, witnesses, a formal proceeding. This protects leadership from accusations of bias or abuse of power. Fourth, it's about deterrence. Public trials send a message. We take the rules seriously. We have processes. If you violate rules, this is what happens. The trial itself becomes a warning to others considering breaking rules. Fifth, it's about closure. When there's guild drama, a trial gives everyone a chance to speak, present their side, and get resolution. Without that, drama festers, people pick sides, the conflict never ends, and the trial forces conclusion. And sixth, it's about maturity and seriousness. Having a formal justice system makes a guild feel professional and organized. It attracts players who want structure. It signals we're not just casual friends group, we're a serious organization. But there's also a performative element. Some guilds enjoy the drama of trials. They're entertaining. They're content. They're social events where everyone gathers to watch justice unfold. The trial becomes part of guild culture and identity. In EVE Online especially, the justice system is part of the game. Espionage, counterintelligence, trials, execution. These are gameplay. The trial isn't just resolving a dispute, it's creating content and stories that make the game interesting. Guild trials can be great, but they also have serious problems. Let's talk about what goes wrong with player-run justice systems. First, there's bias. The judge is usually guild leadership who might have personal relationships with the accused or the accusers. The jury is guild members who might be friends with one side. True impartiality is nearly impossible. Personal feelings influence verdicts even when people try to be fair. Second, there's a lack of legal knowledge. No one in these trials is a lawyer. People don't understand burden of proof, evidence standards, proper procedure. They're making it up as they go. This leads to inconsistent verdicts and procedural unfairness. Third, there's a power dynamic. Guild leaders have all the power. If they want someone gone, they can structure the trial to ensure that outcome. They control who speaks, what evidence is admitted, how long the trial lasts. The appearance of fairness doesn't mean actual fairness. Fourth, there's the time commitment. Trials take hours. For something that's supposed to be a game, spending 3 hours in a formal proceeding about loot distribution is exhausting. Many guilds start with elaborate trial systems and abandon them because they're too much work. Fifth, there's the drama amplification. Sometimes a minor issue that could be resolved with a conversation becomes a huge production because it goes on trial. The trial makes the problem bigger and more dramatic than it needed to be. Sixth, there's the public humiliation factor. Being on trial in front of your entire guild is embarrassing, even if you're acquitted. The accusation alone damages reputation. Some people quit rather than face trial, even when they could prove innocence. And seventh, there's the enforcement problem. Guilty verdicts only matter if people respect them. If the accused doesn't care about guild membership, They'll just leave and join another guild. The trial was meaningless theater. The biggest problem is that guild trials are trying to replicate legal systems that took centuries to develop. Real courts have trained judges, established proceedings, appeal processes, professional standards. Guild trials have none of this. They're amateurs cosplaying a legal system. Sometimes this works fine. Sometimes it's a disaster that makes the original problem worse. Let's talk about the darkest side of guild justice, when the system becomes a tool for control and abuse rather than fairness. Some guilds use trials as political weapons. If you threaten leadership, disagree with decisions, or become too popular with the members, you get put on trial for made up or exaggerated charges. The trial is designed to humiliate you and justify removing you. I've heard stories of guilds where leadership used trials to consolidate power. Anyone who questioned authority would be accused of creating drama or not being a team player and put on trial. The verdict was always guilty because the jury knew voting to acquit meant they'd be next. There are guilds where trials became witch hunts. Leadership would accuse someone based on rumors or suspicions with no real evidence. The trial would pressure people to confess to things they didn't do. It's psychological manipulation disguised as justice. Some trials violate basic privacy. Guilds will read private Discord messages, demand to see whisper logs, interrogate members about others' behavior. The investigation becomes invasive surveillance. And there are trials that enforce toxic rules. I've heard of guilds putting people on trials for things like not being a positive enough, or playing other games, or not laughing at the guild leader's jokes. These aren't rules that should exist, let alone be enforced through formal proceedings. When guild justice becomes tyranny, it's often a sign the guild itself is toxic. Good guilds use trials rarely and fairly. Toxic guilds use them constantly as weapons. If your guild is holding trials every week, that's not justice, that's control. The line between legitimate guild governance and authoritarian control is thin. Trials should make guilds better. When they make guilds worse, it's time to question if the system is the problem. Guild trials are one of the most fascinating emergent behaviors in MMO gaming. They show how players create governance structures, legal systems, and social order in virtual worlds without any game mechanics forcing them to. At their best, guild trials are fair, transparent, and strengthen the community. They give everyone a voice, document decisions, and create accountability. They're justice systems built entirely on social agreement and mutual respect. At their worst, they're kangaroo courts, political theater, and tools of abuse. They waste time, amplify drama, and drive good people away from guilds that should be a fun community. If your guild holds trials, make sure they're fair. Give accused members a real chance to defend themselves. Base verdicts on evidence, not popularity or politics. And remember that this is a game. Justice should make a guild better, not turn playing into work. Next week on MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask, we're diving into PKing for profit, when murder becomes a business model. We're talking about player killers who weaponize game mechanics, turn ganking into organized crime, and made killing other players their primary gameplay. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and support the podcast. Tell your guildmates, share this on Discord, leave us a review. And if you've got a guild trial story, fair or unfair, email us at podcast@mmomadness.com. Until then, know your guild's rules, respect the process, and remember, if you're on trial, you probably deserve a fair hearing. I'm Boss Mode, and thanks for listening.